Doing it live.
We are doing it.
Yeah. We are starting off with this. How about we give everyone just kind of a quick intro? This is what, the week after Thanksgiving?
Yep.
Uh, and we
December
are,
1.
yes, this is episode 2 of the Microsoft Unboxed podcast with me as your host, Kareem Anderson, and I'm joined by.
David Allen, good to see you folks. It is roughly 23 days before Santa Claus comes, so I hope everybody's being good.
Yeah, I wish Santa Claus had brought all our passwords and two-factor authentication before this pod. We had planned to do this about an hour and a half ago, ladies and gentlemen, but internets and technology didn't really want us to start on time.
I,
So,
I, it's all about that sweater you got going on right there. That's what that is.
yes, that's right. People can see. Um, we will be talking about ugly sweaters, but we will also be talking about a handful of other things. I don't believe this podcast this time around is going to be extra long. It is a quiet season for Microsoft, so there hasn't been a ton of headlines. But we will be talking about Evernote committing business suicide, as you just mentioned a few seconds ago. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 is on the docket. We'll be talking about Phil Spencer, who is hinting at starting this gaming store thing early. I also want to talk about Microsoft becoming the secret hand of OpenAI as of this week, and we'll talk about how they managed that and what we kind of predicted last week was going to be a thing.
The secret
We are
hand
also,
with the money briefcase to the right hand side.
exactly. We will also be talking about uh, the new November updates for the Xbox, which brought compact mode for those of you who have an Asus, NVIDIA, or a Lenovo Go. And then we will also be talking about Microsoft developing a companion experience for different screens. They want to be on the cutting edge of being distracted while watching something else on TV. And then lastly, we briefly touch about Copilot is now being shifted around Windows and whether or not that's a good idea. They committed a lot to Copilot and where it's currently at. So we'll see what changing it does. Just for the viewers out there or listeners, I think you're breathing into the mic, so you may want to, I don't know if you want to bring it down a little bit
Sorry, guys.
or something like that for them. There we go. Do you want to get started with our first headline?
Yep, let's jump right in, folks. Let's see. Let's go right on into the Evernote suicide. If you're like me, when you first started learning this thing of taking notes and having things sync between devices and having things, where you could take a note on one PC and then open up a notebook on another PC, Evernote was probably one of the first things you picked up. It was for me because I thought it was pretty cool to be able to just, drop, copy, and paste anything in there, and I could do all that for free. Well, guess what? Free time is over unless you're going to stay under a 50 note limit. Yes, 50 notes is all you get. This starts December 4th. The free version will be reduced to 50 notes, and if you want more than 50 notes, you're going to have to pay for their premium subscription. Or if you want to be able to sync between devices, you're going to have to pay for their subscription. And according to Evernote, this will not affect most people, and I would love to know who most people are. Um, that they looked at their user base, they studied it, they really put some effort into it, and said most people don't have more than 50 notes, so they don't think most people is going to be affected. Now, folks, I don't know who most people are. When I used Evernote, I could put 50 notes in there in a day that I needed to keep. And with things like Loop out there that's free right now, Loop is free to anybody with a Microsoft account. And most people have some sort of Microsoft Office subscription. So guess what? OneNote that we're using for this pod is included. So Evernote, I hope the mortgage on your building is paid. I hope the bills and salaries are paid because I got a feeling the amount of monthly income is going to slowly but surely dry up with this decision.
Yeah, it's interesting that Evernote is deciding to do this now. Like, I get that, times are desperate, and that there are a million note-taking apps that are now being bundled into ecosystems. Like, if you're a Galaxy user, you probably just use the free Notes app on whatever device that you have. Same for those who are using Windows. You get OneNote. You also have sticky notes. You have what's the other note? You have the Microsoft Journal. Like, there's a ton of places. You have Notepad. So there are a ton of places to do it on Windows. I believe on Apple, they have Apple Notes, which transfers across devices. So Evernote's kind of getting squeezed out, unfortunately. They were kind of a hit back in, I don't know, about 5, 6 years ago. People were talking about Evernote, left and right, and everything was synced to that. And it's between Evernote and Dropbox were the future. And now that these ecosystems have kind of gotten their legs, you're hearing more about OneDrive, Google Drive, Apple, whatever their cloud storage thing is, and you're hearing less about uh, Evernote and uh, what was the other one I was just saying?
There's
Dropbox.
Evernote, yeah,
Yeah.
Dropbox, and
Those third parties are, so I get that they're trying to now figure out, all right, if our user base is dwindling, we got to squeeze as much money out of them as possible, despite what they're saying about this affecting fewer people. I think they intentionally wanted to affect as many people that they have on their platform as possible, because that's how they keep, to your point, keeping the lights on, because they can, again, what was used to be free can now be $2, $3, $4 for a small percentage. Is still enough to keep them working, especially if they're not going to be introducing advertising as of right now. So I
and
get it,
I'll
business
throw one
wise.
more thing in there. If you're somebody that's got a lot of notes, somebody that has really been invested in the ecosystem, I guess I can kind of see the point that they're hoping that that person will go ahead and pay that $3 or $4 a month instead of going through the effort of moving all of their notes to another platform. So that may be what they're thinking of. Okay, most people aren't going to pay, want to move their notes and reorganize them, so they'll pay us to keep having to do the work. And on some level, that's probably true.
Yeah, fortunately, they also 5 or 6 years ago made their platform pretty interoperable with other platforms. So it was easy to get your
They did.
Evernote note. Now I know the structure is different now for those who are super uh, structure oriented. Those may be the people who stay, but if you just need the gist of whatever the note was, you could port it over to OneNote pretty easily, and I think you could do the same to Google Drive as well. I don't think it's necessarily going to be in their Notes app. What is their Notes app called? I forget the name of the Notes app, but I don't know if it's going to reappear in there exactly the same. But as long as it's just the information is there, a lot of people may just switch over, which I believe might be the second move Evernote comes up with if they have another announcement before the end of this year. Is, hey, we're locking down our API so that you can't port notes over as well. So for those of you who didn't make the quick exodus as of this week, or whenever they make the next announcement, be prepared to hear something similar to that, because again, they're going to keep people from saying, you know what, I'm just going to go over to OneDrive or over to Google Drive or over to Apple's cloud. Uh, and I believe Samsung also connects their Notes app to OneDrive. You can sync
Yes,
those
they
as
do.
well. So you can basically, via proxy, but two different services, get to OneDrive pretty easily if you're someone who does not want to pay that money soon. Um, let's talk about one of my headlines, shall we?
What you got?
Which I have. Well, I'll save the OpenAI one for a little bit later down the road. We have Microsoft developing companion technology. What exactly that is, Microsoft hasn't said just yet, but they do have a patent out for an experience. And what that is basically, and I believe they had something similar to this years ago that they demoed when they first started doing Windows tablets. But whatever that may be, or what it could have been, um, this technology is not meant for passive consumption, which I believe that last one was. And I'll see if I can find a reference for it in a little bit. But this new one is basically if you are watching something on your television and you happen to have your PC next to you, or you're on your PC, or maybe even on a phone, if they can figure out a way to license this to Android. Uh, Whatever you're doing in that context will have a companion app, companion experience associated to that next screen. So I believe, for instance, say you are, I think it's similar to what Amazon does, where you go into a show and then you click a button and you can see all of the people or actors in from that scene and go into IMDb and things like that. Uh, I believe the way that this demo, or at least the example, was described in the patent was you can start by interacting with your main screen, which again, it could be your PC, and your secondary could be your TV, or vice versa. And then the content that's related to it will show up. So if you're gaming, you could get a tutorial via YouTube on your TV. So if I'm playing, everyone uses this Lara Croft game as their like example for PC reviews, which is why. But if I'm playing that, my TV can then show a walkthrough of the exact same level that I'm on YouTube, and it will intelligently pull that up. So this is where I think part of that AI experience in Windows 12 that we're supposed to be hearing about plays into factor. So again, you have Windows 12 PC, you're playing Lara Croft, and you're like, you know what, I'm stuck on this level. And the computer in your computer or whatever is reading the screen, realizing that, hey, he's been here maybe half an hour too long than most normal people have been for this level. Your
So
TV
let's
might
get
pop
him
up.
some help.
Let's get him some help. The TV might pop up a walkthrough, a specific video on YouTube with that, without you having to do anything. That's the big just behind this. It isn't necessarily that we can't do that now. We can obviously manually do it, but through AI, this is the kind of experience you're going to have. Say another example is you're watching cooking shows, and you're doing it during a specific time of the season. So it's Christmas right now, and you're watching cooking shows like the Great, uh, what is it? The Great British Bake Off, I think it is. And it's Christmas time. You may start to see recipes show up on your device. And again, it could be through Copilot or through a specific app. I think these are app experiences that will give you big cookies, frosted cookies or whatever. Christmas themed cookies will start to show up. And that, again, that's the idea behind this. What do you think about it in practice, actually? Because this could be super annoying.
Well, I'm thinking it's going to be more super annoying than anything. I think people are still one screen focused. I don't think we're going to get to the point where now a gamer, like you just said in a game tutorial, absolutely. If somebody is playing a single player game and they're trying to work their way through a mission or a quest, and that pops up on a device where they can you know, interact with that while they're playing. Absolutely. Now that group may use it, but I don't think you're going to see people, you know, keeping eyes on two screens, somebody cooking in the kitchen and cooking Christmas cookies and getting recipes pop up on a screen, about their Christmas cookies. I don't see that yet. I don't see us to that point of needing it. I think we tried something very similar in television a few years ago where you could watch something on TV and you could pull up, and you had to do it manually, but you could pull up a companion on your tablet or your laptop there, while you were on the sofa. I don't think that went very well, from what I recall.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm always reminded of how human we are when stuff like this starts to show up, because
Hmm.
we have evolved from a species that was, mostly fearful of everything else around us. We were very basic about hunting and gathering and things like that. And now we're being inundated with information constantly from every direction. And I don't know if our brains are necessarily adapted to that. I think even as we passively watch TV. So you could be, with your family watching TV and still on your phone. It's a manual switch. It's like you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to stop looking at my phone at this moment, and I'm going to now engage with whatever else is in front of me, and vice versa. I'm going to stop watching the show and look down at my phone, and maybe I'll use my other senses to kind of keep in tune with what's going on. You can listen, you can hear what's going on in the background. You're not necessarily watching it. Same thing with your, peripheral vision and whatnot. I think with this device, it may be an overload because again, you aren't in control of that switch. And we know AI is in its infancy right now. So it's going to get a lot of things wrong. It's going to pull up a lot of things that are very annoying. And especially if you were, maybe you're watching something that's politically related and it starts to do that, AI algorithm drive down the wrong leaning side of politics for you because it thought you wanted this. It has to get used to you before it has to get used to whatever it is you want eventually. And I don't think we've found an AI system that has been spot on just yet. So again, it's a patent. It may or may not even work. Again, there's a whole business aspect about licensing this. How do you give your developers the APIs to this, and who controls the experience? If I'm handing it off to Android, does Android now take over that? Does it now become a Google Home experience or Google Cast experience? Same thing for does it do cross-platform? If you're on an Apple, if you're watching Apple TV, can Windows then pick up a signal from that on a Windows laptop? I don't, there's all this unknown, but it'll be interesting to see if Microsoft can figure that out. And to what gain is that? Where is the advantage if it's cross-device the way that it's been kind of described in the patent?
I don't know that there is one. And I'm gonna go 30 seconds off to one side here. To something you said. I think we're in information overload. I think everybody is in information overload because I want to ask our viewers a question. When's the last time? I'm gonna ask a two-part question. Put it down in the comments if somebody has done this because I really want to know. When's the last time you sat down in front of your television or went to a movie theater and when you put your phone down, you actually devoted 100% of your attention to whatever you were doing? I know it's been a while for me, and I think it's been a while for most people because see, we have, everybody's worried about a notification. To simplify it, what does that notification mean? Does that notification need my attention? Do I need to leave the movie theater? Do I need to answer this text message? Or can it wait 20 minutes? Can it wait an hour? Can it wait 2 hours for me to finish, watching my movie? Remember, folks, just 10, 15 years ago, we didn't carry these cell phones, these smartphones into the movie theater. We sat down with our popcorn, our drinks, we watched our movie, and we caught up on whatever we missed when they, turned the lights back up. I feel like people have got their phones in their hands already. They're going to look up what they want to look up, and they're not going to look down at what Microsoft or whoever licenses technology is wanting them to care about because this is used, a similar technology is used every week if you're an Amazon Prime user in Thursday Night Football. They call it X Stats or something like that. I'm a
Oh, yeah.
football fan, folks. I've used it one time. One time, just to see what it was. I used it one time. I had it on my device. I had the stats on my device. Okay, this is cool. Put it down. Next. I don't see it kicking off.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, but again, that was sort of a manual process, right? I think
Right.
Microsoft's betting on it being an intuitive AI process. Then again, they're putting a lot behind it. I, to your point, am skeptical. But we'll move on to our next headline, which is Phil
Uh,
Spencer confirms talks with partners to build gaming store.
We have talked about it, and we had talked about it for the other outlet that we did some podcasting and some writing for. Phil Spencer is still headfirst into all the partners getting together, all the developers getting together, and having a game store. He admits this is what the PC Gaming Awards that we're doing now. Am I right here?
Correct.
Um,
Yes.
He says, let's all get together, build a store. I hope Epic is one of his partners. Let me throw that out there. Since Epic and Apple had their little tiff, I hope maybe Epic and Microsoft can get together. But the gaming store, I think, is coming sooner than later. Me, big gamer, look at our website. I do a lot of gaming content. I game, try to game on a weekly basis. I see this happening. I see this becoming a big thing. I see this being a subject of lawsuits as well. I think somebody here is going to be upset. There's going to be a revenue split that doesn't make somebody happy. There's going to be something in this that kind of throws a wrench in it. And I don't think the consumer will just get the fun out of it. I don't.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting to kind of figure out what the difference between a mobile gaming store is and just an app store, right? Because
Hmm.
there are already app stores established that have gaming sections in them. Would it be easier for them to just get their app full of games in that store? Obviously, they'd be splitting the revenue, which is what you don't want to do with like Apple. Was it 70-30 or something like that? Um, how are you going to get people to move over to? I'm going to go to this Xbox version of it. Find it because I mean, I guess the analogy is like, how do you get a mobile Steam app game store going on a phone? Because people know it. People who know on a PC know how to get to it on a PC.
Well,
Do
now,
people who are go ahead?
go ahead. Doesn't this kind of go back to what we just talked about in a way? Why would
What do you
people
mean?
go? Why would people go to a third party for
Mm-hmm.
information when
Yeah.
or their product? Like you take, let's do Call of Duty Mobile, popular game, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can get it in the Apple Store right there on your iPhone. You can get it in the Android store right there on your Google phone. So why would you open up that third party app when you're going to be buying everything else for your device in one of those two places? Kind of goes back to what we were just talking about in our previous headline. Why are you picking up that other party? That's the part I don't understand. But Phil is, he's been very headstrong ever since the Activision deal started, about hinting that we want a game store, that the industry needs this game store. He is talking to partners about it, and I'm afraid there's going to be a disconnect, like you're talking about, between the mobile store and the game store. I don't see where that connects.
I mean, there kind of already is to a certain degree if you're not someone who's cognizant of the difference between the Xbox app and the Microsoft Store for games.
True.
Because in the Microsoft Store, you could find games, buy games. In the Xbox app, you can start a game, buy a game, and do like cloud streaming and stuff. So um, Microsoft should have integrated the cloud streaming aspect button into the Microsoft Store for people who are casuals. Again, if you were someone who is looking to play maybe State of Decay because you've heard about it, and you go to the Microsoft Store, you really only find options to purchase it there, different editions, things like that. To spin up a cloud streaming version of it, you basically need the Microsoft app. You can install it on your device as well if you wanted to. And again, that's if you had the time and the Wi-Fi capability to do that. But if you were someone who was just like, I just want to try and play the game. I saw the trailer. I know that there's a way to like stream from the cloud. If you didn't know about the Xbox app, it'd be really hard for you to do that. So that's that aspect of Microsoft figuring that part out. To play devil's advocate, when they say talking to partners, that means that they're probably going to be putting this app, this store, on devices. That's the fastest, easiest way for it to be intuitive for people. So the same way that Samsung has its Samsung Galaxy Store, I'm sure they're talking with Samsung to have just the app on the home screen. Xbox Mobile Gaming Store. which is just a window, an expanded window into the Xbox app itself. And same thing probably with device manufacturers like the people like Asus and Lenovo, people who are making handhelds, and for PCs as well. So that is their fastest way. I think that is the easiest, least resistant way to kind of get it out there. How to train people to go there though is going to be different because again, if I buy my next S29 or whatever the next one version, by the time they have this out comes out, and I see that icon on there, do I know that I need to keep going there to get new games, repeat games? Do I even keep the icon on my home screen? If I'm setting up a phone the same way that I've been doing the last couple ones I've reviewed, you pull your apps from your old phone. And if that app isn't on there, you may not even see it, especially if you set up your old home screen to look like you set up your new home screen to look like your old home screen. That app wasn't there 4 editions ago, and you've just kept bringing it over and over. And I know that you have people who never change the background on their phone when they buy it. So you have someone who's coming from maybe an S10 who's never seen any of these new apps, and you're just bringing your screen over. You may or may not ever see that Xbox store. So again, we have more questions than we do answers, unfortunately, for this story, ladies and gentlemen. But again, Microsoft's got some time to figure it out.
And I'm guilty as charged on that one. As deep as I am in tech and as much fun as we have, twisting tech up and twisting all these devices into scenarios and testing for our reviews, when I buy my phone, folks, I'm sorry, but I'm that guy. I do not delete the factory apps. I very rarely customize it. And when I buy something, I buy from the main store. I am guilty as charged. I very rarely buy something from the Microsoft store on Windows. I usually get what I need from the Google Play Store if I'm on an Apple device from the Apple Store. I do not use a whole lot of these Samsung apps as far as going into the Samsung store and buying from there because I feel like I want my credit card in the main places. That way, when I pick up alternative devices, the assumption is that they're going to connect, they're going to work. Who says that Samsung's not going to change the store when I'm halfway through my device and I lose something in that case? Whereas Google is not out to change their store and disrupt millions of people. Neither's Apple and neither's Microsoft. So they've got some time, as you said, to figure it out. I'm going to be watching next year to see where this leads.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next headline, which is Microsoft announcing the Xbox November update, which has new features. They have a couple new things that they brought over, but amongst the newest one, the biggest one, is compact mode. And I've tried it out because I am briefly reviewing. I still have to send it over to you. The Lenovo Legion Go, which is the competitor to the Steam Deck and the Asus ROG Ally. Yes, it's an awesome device, but we've said it time and time again on this podcast that Microsoft needs to develop a version of Windows, i.e., the Xbox interface for these devices, because it is a full-on Windows PC, for better or for worse. If you are a big heavy gamer, and you have a big rig and you know how to kind of manipulate settings and go through Windows and do all these kind of things, it's great. You'll want to do it with a keyboard and controller, Bluetooth to the device itself, because they have button controls which aren't intuitive to Windows UI at all. So that's the first stopgap if you're someone who just bought it and was like, I just want to play my old PC game on this thing. But if you played it via keyboard and mouse, you may just, again, connect it Bluetooth-wise, which defeats the whole purpose because, again, this thing's supposed to be handheld and on the go. But in this compact mode, it basically takes the Xbox app and gets rid of all the Chrome around it and, makes it a large screen interface so that you don't have to deal with the background, things like that, and kind of is more intuitive towards the joysticks as far as navigating up, down, left, right, clicking on certain things or whatnot. Now, mind you, most of these handhelds have touchscreen devices, so you could also do it that way. The button interfaces are a little bit bigger, kind of like Windows 11's touch mode. Things kind of get larger, but the overall UI is still roughly the same. So that's the same thing for this compact mode for the Xbox app. So if you're used to the Xbox app, it's just that, but focused now on that. It's the main window. It's a little bit bigger. You can kind of get in and out of the UI much quicker. What do you think about that? I know you haven't tried it yet.
I've not tried it yet, but I think it's interesting you bring that up. I watched a video this morning from a very popular YouTuber, Mobile Tech Review with Lisa. She had
Hmm.
reviewed the Steam Deck, the new OLED version, and she kind of brought this up in her review. She had the Ally there, and she discussed it. She had the Steam Deck there, and she was explaining that how the Steam Deck is ran off of Steam OS, and it's more like a Game Boy type device where you could just put your game in, select it, and go. And she, kind of touched on the fact that you can't buy these for your children. The Lenovo Legion, for example, love you Lenovo, but everybody's doing this. Um, you can't buy that for your children and them open it on Christmas morning and start their game up and see the joy on their faces while they're sitting under the Christmas tree, and their game is launching. They've got to hand that device off to mom and dad. Mom and dad have got to sign into that device. They've got to run Windows updates and they've got to, get it PC friendly. And if the child is young enough, they've got to help that child each time they want to start a game.
Yes.
And I feel like, these devices are wonderful, but our software experience, Microsoft, needs work. You've done it with the Xbox. You did it all the way back with the original Xbox. I think we called them blades back in the day, where it kind of looked like a notebook, and you could flip through and choose what you wanted. And I think Microsoft called that the Blade dashboard or something along those lines. Come on, Microsoft, just give us something simple where we can, you know, make the games go to one place. We can tap, we can click, we can see little icons, and let the Windows updates take care of themselves in the background. Because if it's a gaming device, how many of those updates do we need? Basically, what we've done here is say, look, you can run Windows on a handheld, and because we have a low resolution screen, we can make an integrated GPU play a game. We have not completed the user experience. And if we don't, I don't think there's going to be many more versions of these things, because hardware vendors can only do so much.
Hmm.
And if the software vendor, Microsoft, does not pick the game up, they're going to stop making these devices, and Steam Deck is going to say, look at us. We've got the game catalog, we've got the software, we've got the interface. This is where you go play mobile gaming. And then what's the purpose of the Phil Spencer mobile store at that point? Is that just for phones? Or do people say, well, I'm going to go buy a Steam Deck? Microsoft, if they go buy a Steam Deck, you're out. You're out. You've got to fix it. And you better fix it quickly.
Yeah. As I was playing with the Lenovo Legion, they did a pretty good job of offering this interface that connects to your different marketplaces for your games and allows you to kind of launch games from there. What I think Microsoft needs to do uh, is figure out a way to merge the UIs between the current Xbox app, which offers a lot of functionality,
Mhm.
and the UI from Xbox itself. They should be roughly similar, so people know that, hey, this is what the gaming experience looks like across the board when you're on a PC, when you're on a console, when you're doing these kind of things. Because then what they could do is the same thing they did for the Windows tablets is, hey, anything that's under 8 inches of a screen device, you get this interface. And there's buttons because all these things have plenty of buttons. They have all kinds of capacitive touch things, screens and things like that. They're loaded with tactile functionality. There should be a dedicated button on all these devices that will launch into Windows, essentially. So you start off, and again, you put it somewhere that is very prominent so people know, like, hey, when I press that button, I'm leaving my safe space of the Xbox UI and I'm about to get into Windows. And if you press the button, you get tossed back into Xbox. Like that, there should be an easy way to do it. So, like you said, if you hand it to a kid, you accidentally press the button, tell them press the button again, they're back to where it's safe again. But if you're someone who's a teenager, older, professional gamer, whatever, you press that button, you get into all of the nitty gritty, the benefits of having these handheld consoles, moving from a tower into your hands on a train, on a plane, waiting for Thanksgiving dinner on the couch, whatever. You have that benefit of being able to go in, fix your settings, adjust the frame rates, adjust the speed, adjust the cooling, adjust looking at all of the aspects of the gaming that you know are comfortable and aware enough to use. You press that button, you get in all that stuff. You press it, you get back out to, hey, I just need to click over to the icon that has my game and launch that game.
Mhm.
That's and again, maybe they're working on it. Who knows? We're saying this stuff, and I'm sure there's a network of engineers somewhere within Microsoft that are scratching their heads, going, "All right, how do we do this, and how do we do it and build releases where we can get telemetry on exactly how these people are using these things, even if it's only a few of them, and how do we optimize it for that?" But with that being said, uh, your point still stands. Microsoft needs a lot of work. A lot of people are moving faster than they do, and I feel like this happens a lot, and we lose out on a lot of great technology, like the dual screen PCs right now. People are moving faster. Even Microsoft moved faster than its own self with Windows 10X. They had the great device. They had this UI concept for Windows 10X, and then it fell flat. And I feel like the same thing's happening for folding devices. Like Windows is not ready for folding devices, and all these manufacturers are going to just drop it, even though we have this great hardware and they're trying it out. They're saying in Microsoft, we want to play around and do cool things. The same thing with these handhelds. They're saying, hey, we want to put your operating system on a handheld. And Microsoft is just moving at a snail's pace, and people are going to lose interest and money.
And I'll throw this in there. There is one device that did not get a lot of fanfare that does a pretty good job. There's two. Um, Razer came out with a device a couple year ago that was a 5G device that was powered by Android, and then there was the Logitech G Cloud. Um, those devices had pretty good customized interfaces where you could go into the Xbox Cloud, you could go into GeForce Now, and you could play some of your Android games locally. So they have the ability. I'm just like you said, I'm hoping they get to it before the product cycle runs out because who knows if we make it back to this product cycle, if that makes sense.
And if we do make it back, that someone hasn't leapfrogged them as they tend to do. Maybe it's Google or another company that no one saw coming figures it out before Microsoft does. Our next headline, I believe, is yours. Is the Modern Warfare one.
Yep, we've got Modern Warfare and some of the other. Let me get the headline up here. Yes. Modern Warfare 3, the new Call of Duty for those folks, and Warzone have made it to GeForce Now, which is the streaming service for PC, Mac. You can do it on your Android device, you can do it on your iPad. Now, why is this a big deal? There was a partnership that was announced back when the negotiations were going on with Activision and Microsoft on the buying of Activision that they handed out these 10-year licensing deals. We talked about it on other podcasts. And GeForce Now came in, picked up one of those licensing deals. So this is kind of the first move. We're seeing a major AAA title today that is still popular that just came out roughly 30, 30, 35 days ago, finally on a streaming platform. I'm interested to see one, how it performs. How well does it perform? Might pick up a GeForce membership this weekend and try it out. If you guys have tried it out, let me know down in the comments. But I think this is a start of Activision and Microsoft deals kind of working their way through the system, and we're getting a big time mainstream title on a streaming platform. I'm kind of impressed to see it. I was kind of shocked to see it when I first read that headline.
Yeah, I'm interested. I'm eagerly waiting as well, but I also don't have much else to contribute to this one until we get a chance to play it. I could always speculate about how poorly this could go, but let's not do that. Let's go into this holiday season joyful, shall we?
Well, we're doing it right before the holiday season. I'm sure there's going to be some folks here in about 20 some, 21, 22 days that are going to be turning on new streaming devices, and they're going to tell us real quick whether Call of Duty works well on GeForce now or not.
So yeah, we won't have to wait very long. I'm going to go to our next headline, which is not as joyful, but it's going to be interesting. We have Sam Altman back at OpenAI. We talked about this.
Round we go.
Yeah, we told you guys to stay tuned. We'd also mentioned that he's back, and he's back with a twist. Not only is he back within the company, but he brought along some friends, and those friends are Microsoft. Um, he is back as CEO. I believe some of the details are his who was his name? Okay, let's get this right. The new board consists of Chair Brett Taylor as well, Larry Summers, and I believe Larry, is it Brett or Larry? One of the two. We're going to leave with them. So two people who were off the board, off out of the company, are back not only in the company but on the board as well. And I believe the interim CEO has also been named as part of the board as well. But again, for our purposes in this conversation, the more important thing is that Microsoft is on the board as a observing non-voting member, though. And I point this out because, again, for regulatory reasons, there's a reason why Microsoft doesn't want an official board seat, because they are also a huge investor, and to be kind of a conflict of interest to have them on the board and also kind of guiding this new thing. We had mentioned some of the details, some of the speculation that had been going on the weekend that he was let go, about Microsoft, positioning itself for a position or some kind of insight, visual or confirmation into the board's actions, so they're not caught flat-footed again. Because again, Microsoft is a $10.5 billion investor in this over the next 10 years or so, and OpenAI has to pay them back as far as through revenue and whatnot, in order for them to retain some more shares. Microsoft, I think, holds 49% of them, and then there's a consortium that holds the other half of that. So if OpenAI is ever to chart its own course in the future, they have to pay back what Microsoft invested, and then they retain more shares going into the future. What are your thoughts on Altman being back and Microsoft kind of being back with him?
Microsoft is going to protect their $10 billion investment. Ultimately, that's what they're going to do. And I think, when all this unfolded and we talked about it on the last podcast, Sam was out. The board kicked him out. Microsoft says we're hiring him. And, he's bringing his coworkers that are on the board with him. They even talked about, oh, we're putting them in the LinkedIn offices. We're getting the offices ready. Then when Satya Nadella is doing some interviews, he refuses to commit to Sam. And then Sam goes back to the board, and they made a big deal about it. He's coming in with a visitor pass, The guy that made OpenAI is coming in with a visitor's pass because they had kicked him out of the building. So I think, OpenAI's future is right here. Sam is who Microsoft wants in that
Yeah.
role.
Well, we also kind of talked about what might have led to his ousting, to begin with, which is the makeup and the vision of the company. The company was started, I believe, as a nonprofit, eventually uh, took on for-profit expenditures and ventures, which led to getting funding from Microsoft. And I believe the ultimate evaluation of the company adding like 90 billion in value or whatnot. So, and I believe Altman was running with that version of the company. Like he was seeing an opportunity to make more money. I know that OpenAI started with the vision to kind of just help humanity and kind of, be an open source platform for advanced artificial intelligence, regenerative AI, or whatnot. And I think the board over the weekend that they had the developer conference kind of had what I would say would amount to a coup. They saw that the company was getting away from those particular voting members' vision, and that Sam wasn't being very clear in his deals or transactions outside of the nonprofit sector. Again, this is only because they offered a vague statement as soon as he was asked it, saying that he wasn't being very transparent, but they didn't say to what extent and to what it was. So again, we're left to speculate that again, the nonprofit sector wanted to continue doing what they were doing and voted him out. They had the votes to do it, but I think they all took a weekend to realize 90 billion in value is a lot of money. Microsoft's investment is a lot of money, and Microsoft's prepared to basically steal the brain trust of that company for very little right from underneath them. When you have the CEO being offered a job and about 500 of 700 employees willing to go with him to a different company that has more money and more resources, it would only take a few years for them to match where you're currently at as a nonprofit and then exceed you. So you'd be irrelevant within 5 years or so, and Microsoft would have basically undercut OpenAI uh, for cheaper than what it's doing currently. And who knows how those contracts worked for the 10 billion that was already currently invested. If there was ways out of it, if not having him as CEO, there was a clause in the contract saying like if he's not helming these decisions, maybe we pull our money out. Either whatever all of the multiple facets were that brought him back to the company, he's there now. Microsoft has a seat on the board so they can tell their investors, who were probably also shocked. And I believe we talked about how it hurt their stock as soon as he was fired, because Microsoft had dumped so much money and so much time and so much effort and so much keynotes into talking this company up and its technology up. When he's out and he's your go-to person, it puts Microsoft's future in kind of disarray, so to speak, until they can figure out who they can trust over at the company. Now they can trust themselves because they're on the board.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And I think there's a lot of things that went on in this deal that we know nothing about. They don't want us to know anything about. The lawyers and the attorneys, the powers that be, they know all about it, and they know the way that Sam made it back to the board. I will say I'm 45 years old. I have been around business for a lot of years. I have seen how businesses work. I have never seen a CEO, somebody in charge get kicked out by the board and go home, have a beer, and get a phone call and say, "Oh, we screwed up. Do you want to come back?" So I think somebody, after this move was made, there was some attorney that stepped in and said, "Hey, there's the clause in the contract. Or the contract is wrote this way. The contract says this." And then Microsoft rings the phone and goes, "We have a contract. We have $10 billion. Uh, this is what we want. You guys figure it out." And I think
Yeah.
I think that's how Sam got back. Now, does Sam want to be back? That's the question.
I mean,
But
it seems like because we're basing all this reporting off of a memo that he posted to the company, which doesn't replace, but goes atop the last memo, which said he was out. It seems like he is fully in charge of this. They've ousted the three other members who I'm assuming voted for him to be out. So he's got his generals in there, people I'm assuming he trusts so far. They talk about new company structure and the way that they're going to govern differently. They don't get any details about that, but I'm assuming he's going to, with the backing of Microsoft now, have a lot of pull on where and what they do. And I'm sure because it's Microsoft, a lot of the for-profit things that he was about to get into will just be greenlit, be rubber stamped, with very little from the nonprofit section kind of having protest against. So I think OpenAI is going to be exactly what Microsoft wants it to be going forward with a very smooth road. With that being said, you want to talk about PhoneLink getting a webcam?
Yes, that was very interesting to me. I'm a big phone link user. I'm the guy. I know you have talked about. There's some things about phone link that you don't like with some of the double notifications and stuff like that that it does. I'm a big fan of device integration. I have my phone, my PCs are all linked together. I like to do things on one screen. Kind of
Mhm.
interesting that we have talked about doing things on multiple screens 2 or 3 times already in this pod. I'm your one screen guy. So if you're an Apple user, last it was earlier this year, end of last year. If you remember, they did a demo where you could use your iPhone with your MacBook as a webcam. So now Microsoft is saying there has been code spotted. It was the Android Authority that put this out there, so I want to make sure they get credit for it. That they had spotted code in PhoneLink that indicates that we may soon be able to use our phones as cameras slash streaming devices inside of PhoneLink. Now, if you're not a PhoneLink user, I'll tell you this makes sense because you can already stream audio from the PhoneLink app to your PC. That you can already do. In fact, if you're listening to music, they'll even put the player up in the PhoneLink window to where you can control the player, find your music, etc. So to me, this makes sense that the next evolution will be okay, now take your phone, you know, clip it on your laptop or hold it in your hand, whatever, and use that as a streaming device with your computer. PhoneLink keeps getting better. They continue to add features. When it first came out, it was a bear. There was a lot of bugs. It's hard to hook up to devices. You could only hook to single devices. So I hope the code is a little more than maybe they're trying something. I kind of hope we see this. It would be neat to, you know, when you're doing a pod on the go, just get a phone clip and toss it right up here on the top of your laptop. Go,
Yeah, I mean, I'm
you're,
all
you're
for it. I mean,
streaming.
Apple's paved the way with their integration into what is Sonoma, I think it is, the most latest operating system that allows people to basically use their iPhones as webcams, which again, our phones are amazing cameras as is. We don't need to necessarily buy a dedicated DSLR as well as having a phone and a webcam, all within, traveling bag. So I'm all for it if they can figure it out. The issue I have with this is that they haven't opened up phone link to more devices yet, and I don't know what is stopping them.
Yes.
If this is going to be something that works for people, it's got to be more than just these super high-end Samsung devices and the Duo. Then even the Duo, I don't think it's the same level of love
No, it
as like
doesn't.
an S23 and a Z Flip or Z Fold does. So open it up. You don't even support. You used to support the Duo. The Duo is no longer a thing. So let's get it into Pixel devices. Let's get it into more Samsung devices. Maybe you don't open it up to LG, but you open it up to older Samsung devices. At least get more devices on this list that people can start using. Maybe include OnePlus because their cameras are top notch as well. If you're not going to do LG or Motorola, but there needs to be more than just two versions of a Samsung phone that get this kind of functionality.
I agree. My brother, for example, just bought one of the Pixel 8 Pros, and he loves the phone to death. Raves about it daily about the AI functionality and all the Google bells and whistles that are in that phone. And he came from 15 years on an iPhone, so for him this was a big switch. He was an iPhone 1 user. Um, and that's been his complaint because he sees that my screen is synchronized, text, calls, notifications, etc. And he goes, "Why doesn't mine do that?" And he can only text, because it's not a full version of phone link for the non-Samsung slash Microsoft Surface Duo devices. So it needs to be out there at least for everybody's flagships. If you don't
Agreed.
get some of the lower cost phones for whatever reason, maybe there's some software glitches, maybe there's not enough hardware overhead. I understand that, but I think, Google Pixel, Pixel Fold, the OnePlus phones, and any of the other manufacturers out there that we're not thinking of that have a flagship phone, make it available, then give us these features.
Agreed. We get two other headlines, and we'll get you guys out of here. The last one, or last two, are you thinking from me, really? One of them is the Copilot being tested in Windows 11 on the dev channel on the most recent build. Uh, Microsoft is releasing this to insiders, and again, I think they're A/B testing this, so it's only some insiders as of now. It's in preview build 235.5. You can go to the Windows blog in order to get more details about it if we miss anything. But what they're doing is basically moving the Copilot icon, which used to be left or right of center if you have a center aligned, or even if it's left aligned, of the search icon or search bar, depending on what you had there. You click on it, and it would bring up a Windows pane on your right side of your desktop, which it was near your Action Center, basically right on top of the Action Center. And that's where you would interact with Copilot in whatever limited capacity it works currently. But what they're deciding to do now is move that icon to the right side, far right. Let me see if I can zoom in on that so you guys can kind of get an idea of what this looks like. So there you go. You got it on right next to your calendar and your time frame on your Windows taskbar. And it makes sense because, again, that is where the interactions happen to begin with. And I think I mentioned, maybe I talked to you about it, but I think they're testing this as a way to get ready for their eventual backporting of Copilot to Windows 10. Because right now, Windows 10 users don't have the same functionality or flexibility of the taskbar as Windows 11 users do. They probably will never get that to that level. So they interact with everything through the Action Center currently. Their settings are all through the Action Center. It's not broken up like it is in Windows 11, where you have two separate levels, Action Center, and then you have quick settings. Quick settings and the action things are combined in that. So now putting the Copilot in that same area where it will eventually show you all of the Copilot good features makes sense. It's intuitive. The problem with this thing is that for those of you, I didn't even really use it. I knew that it would happen, and I did it accidentally most of the time. But over the last 28 years, Show Desktop has been sitting in that same area.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very limited area to put stuff in. You have very limited pixel amounts, and it's going to be hard to do that. So what Microsoft did was, in this test version, they've turned off Show Desktop by default. So if you're one of the people who have been using that, slide your cursor over to the farthest, smallest corner of Windows in order to minimize or maximize all your apps on the screen at one time. It's off by default now. You'll have to go into settings and re-enable it, unfortunately. And I don't even know how it works in combination with Copilot there, if you actually click on one or the other. But I haven't enrolled any of my devices into this dev channel particularly yet. When I do, I will get back to you, ladies and gentlemen, about how this works out and whether or not people who grew up on Show Desktop will be very upset about it.
Got to raise my hand again.
Well, I was going to say, there we go. We got one already. I haven't even tried it out yet.
I am a Show Desktop user 100%. I use it many times a day. One just to keep prying eyes off of my desktop. Two, just when I need to get everything out of the way quickly and open something up. It's one of those things. Show desktop to me is probably one of the biggest yet most forgotten features in Windows. So if Microsoft makes the decision to say, hey, I've got to choose Copilot or my desktop in that corner,
Uh-oh.
I'm going to be that one that has a problem because my muscle reflex, I'm looking at it right now, folks. My cursor says show desktop. I know right where that is, even though you can barely see it. It's going
It's
to
got to
be
be
one
what,
of,
3 pixels wide,
at
or 3
least,
pixels long and one
yeah.
pixel wide. It is the smallest section of Windows ever.
And it's going to, for me, it's going to be a muscle reflex thing. I'm an MX Master Mouse user, and I can hit that 2 or 3 pixels. I've done it so much I can hit that 2 or 3 pixels every time. And if I get to the point of I'm opening
It's like
Copilot instead of
right
showing desktop,
here.
I'm not going to be happy.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be interesting. I'm not a huge fan or user of the thing. Like I said, I've accidentally hit it a few times over the past 20 some odd years. I'm assuming they had telemetry to show them that, or maybe, like I said, maybe they're just preparing people for it, saying like, hey, to hell with show desktop, but people just leave it as is, or they have built-in lines of code that allow you to use Copilot to do the same thing. Maybe it's voice operated at this point. You say, hey, Copilot, show desktop, and it gets rid of all your apps. Hey, Copilot, show desktop, and it brings them all back. Ideally, that's what they showed off in March, where there was Copilot was more localized and did more things for the operating system on the PC than it does right now, which is kind of just pulling up a web wrapper of Bing Chat. So maybe when the Copilot is fully built out, it no longer has the little pre-designation on it or the preview label on it. You'll be able to, like I said, use it much quicker in that aspect. Maybe it'll replace that.
And there's also the screenshot that has been floating around for about a year. We featured it a long time ago. And it's kind of the screenshot that never died on this new Surface Studio that Microsoft leaked it out, where the Windows desktop looked like a MacBook,
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of the icons and system controls had been slid to the top. And I heard this on another podcast. I don't think Microsoft just decided to draw that up for nothing. So we keep talking about Windows 12, we keep talking about AI. Let's not make the assumption that Windows 12 is going to be like Windows 11 looks and feels now. I think there's a reason we haven't heard a lot about Windows 12 so
There's
far,
concepts, yeah.
and I think Microsoft is, AI is the thing right now. And I think Microsoft is swimming in the AI waters, thinking of what is the best way to get this in front of users, to get them interacting with it. So, one, they get the experience. Two, there's an invoice for it. Let's make a little income off of that in some way. And for now, Copilot may go in the bottom right, but it wouldn't surprise me if within the next Windows release, things get moved around a little bit.
Agreed. And the last headline is the one I'm wearing. It is
There it is, boys and girls.
the
There it is.
ugly sweater. You show off everybody.
We got you, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, Microsoft was kind enough to send over one of these bad boys for me. This is my first. Now I know people like Rich and The Rot and the rest of them have a long-standing collection at the exact setup. So I'll see if I can get some back orders for like the Clippy version and the XP ones. But I believe, yeah, this is the Windows XP. What's it called? Bliss wallpaper version. That's the one for 2023. They sent that. You can go get it at the Microsoft I think it's actually the Xbox Gear store. So again, Microsoft's got stores everywhere. They need to consolidate that kind of stuff. But the Xbox Gear store, you can go get it. I got mine a couple days ago, but I wasn't able to make it to the post office until last night. It is a super comfy sweater. Joe Finley on Twitter and I were joking back and forth. He asked if it ran on ARM. I told him it was a little toasty, so it's probably still an Intel-based sweater. For those of you who are experiencing this very cold weather, cold front that we got going on, grab the sweater and it'll keep you warm. But that's what we're going to end with, ladies and gentlemen. Just a fun, ugly sweater kind of thing. Microsoft continues doing this trend. It's been kind of fun. I'm glad that they were able to start off using Clippy as one of them, because it just kind of shows, they had a sense of humor on what ostensibly was a failure for what they wanted Clippy to do. It's supposed to be it was the precursor to Cortana, which also failed, and Copilot, which is succeeding so far, but we'll see where that eventually ends up as well. So Microsoft is doing that. I believe that the guys on Windows Central were talking about which ones they could do in the future, and Zach's always pushing for Windows Phone. I don't know if they're going to do that because it's still a sore subject, but I think Daniel Rubino also mentioned Zune. I think Zune will be a good one because these are all Windows-based sweaters. So as much as we want Microsoft to, put all their stuff in like Xbox and other things, they'll have to, I assume, be Windows related. And Zune was Windows software.
Microsoft Zune.
You'd have a very cool, pink, fuchsia, orange color sweater. We know that the UI was the precursor to what Windows Phone eventually got anyway. So there goes your linkage, Zach. You can get the Zune ugly sweater, hopefully going forward. There's other things we can probably talk about. What about Groove? Groove would be a great sweater somehow.
Yeah, Groove would be good.
What other sweaters I was going to say, which other ones could you think of?
We could do a Windows Server sweater, like Windows NT.
Ooh, that you could. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, have we done a Windows 3.1 in the past? That's kind of when PCs kind of kicked off. They had Windows 3.1 and Windows for Workgroups 3.1.1, if you remember.
We could also do, we can just start doing applications from back in the day. And I know, we can do one for Mary Jo where it's just Notepad. Just a Notepad sweater.
Yep.
Or Windows Paint. I think they did do it. I'm not sure. I think the Windows Paint one before. They can do it again. A different version of Windows Paint, but that's, oh no, they did Minesweeper. So they can do a Windows Paint version.
Well, what we could do, we could get a Paint one for Paul and then a Notepad one for Mary Jo.
There we go. There we go. You got some free ideas, Microsoft. Get working on these sweaters because people will wear them. With that being said, we want to thank you guys for joining us for another weekend of Microsoft news. Like I said, it's a little bit slow. We will try and maintain our schedule of podcasting and streaming throughout the holidays, but obviously there will be some days we'll be off, so we will let you guys know about those. Where can people find you?
David PAJ 1978, and if my lovely co-host will remind me over the weekend, I will actually, that's on Twitter, X, whatever you want to use, by the way, David PAJ 1978. But if he will remind me, I will actually go set up a Threads account and we can communicate, party out on both of them.
Yeah, you can find me at Mindhead1 on Twitter. But to your point, I think I'm gonna. I did one on Threads the other day, and it was so peaceful. I saw the first thing that came up on my Threads was a shot of someone's house who had this like giant, 3-story windows that were outlooking the like a forest or whatever, and it was in the middle of a kind of a snowstorm-ish, not heavy, but enough to like see the leaves moving and snow going sideways, and they were watching something on a flat screen, and they had a fireplace going, and it was just some music and the pan of that house, and it was so peaceful. Again, I'm not trying to dismiss anything that's going on in the war, the Israel-Gaza war, anything like that, but that when I go next, that's what it is, and it's exhausting. And I believe Elon this week also set his platform on fire, faster than Stephen Elon
boy,
with some remarks. We won't get into that, but I do see that we'll probably need a safe space. I will need a parachute, and Threads will probably be that space for me. I don't know about you guys. You might
I
stay
think
on
a
the.
lot of people are going to need a safe space, and I think the employees that are left at X might need a new space there too.
Yeah, Linda Yacarino, whatever her name is, she's got her work cut out for it. I wouldn't begrudge her if she started wearing hats because she's pulling her hair out. So that's all Party on Threads. For those of you who are still listening, thank you and have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.